Oh, that was a weird laugh. What was
That's
that?
going on there.
I know. It's like a Godzilla or something. I feel like that was, if Godzilla could laugh, it was like,
You should get into voiceovers.
I don't think I would be a very good voiceover, right?
You know, we should tell
Terrible.
Kimberly Johnson that, because she said that she likes to listen to your podcast just to hear your voice and hear you laugh.
Oh. Welcome to In the Act, a radio program on process and the creative life. Creativity does not just start and stop with artists. We all make aesthetic or guiding decisions. Our aim is to talk through the process and investigate how we choose to express ourselves and live creatively. We are connecting with people about their lives, and that is the subject of our show. Broadcasting from Mead Public Library in Sheboygan, Wisconsin on Mead Public Radio. On Mead Community Radio. I am Erica Huntzinger, and this is In the Act. And today's guest on In the Act is Erica Huntzinger. It's me.
Yay! And I'm interviewing her.
That's right. And we are here. So this is Heather Hanlon. And Heather asked if she could interview me. And I said, sure, but I think I was already interviewed. And she said, yep, I know, I heard it, but I also have other questions. So can I interview you? And I was like, oh, that's so cute. Of course. And John and I thought it was a great idea. And so we have, I usually sit in a seat nearest the door, and now I'm in the guest seat. And so I'm just giving physical reference to where we are. And thank you.
Thank you for letting me sit in your seat today.
I'm so glad.
Thank you both for having this great show for our community. And if you don't mind, I'll just dive right in and ask you a question.
Okay.
My first question is, I wonder if, and I know you touched on this with your interview with John a little, or more than a little bit, but I wonder if you can just tell us a little bit about your artistic background from when you were growing up.
Yeah.
And like things that were formative in that way.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm trying to parse it out with materials, but I guess, wow, golly, I don't know how to start. I was really drawn to, okay. Sorry.
I can also be more specific to help guide that if you want.
Nope, that's okay. I just have to set myself up a little bit. It takes a little bit of time to kind of review and fall into a place of exploration of that sort. Deep ages ago.
Yeah.
And I think that because I was, we didn't have family around. It was just my brother and myself and my parents. And so, and my father was a minister, and my mom was a psychologist, and my brother was 5 years older than I am. And we had Basset Hound, and we had a Siamese cat. And my formative explorations were in nature and with my pets and building, I think, communities with my dolls and my stuffed animals, and creating these little nests of in a baby buggy, or taking them with me outside, playing in the sandbox, creating little villages. Looking for frogs was one of my favorite things to do. I love frogs. And playing in the mud in the rain with my Basset Hound, sleeping curled up next to him, and with my cat, with the Siamese. And I think that those, I didn't have any friends my age. And so a lot of it was self-exploration. I played a lot with dolls and a lot of princesses. And I think the idea of that was to feel connected, right? My want was to feel accepted and connected. Yeah. And I felt connected to those animals and the spirit of what I imbued into my little setups.
Yes.
But also in my dad's church, the stained glass windows, the yellows and greens along the side of these rectangular yellow and green, light greens and light yellows, with this deep purpley, violet blue, and red square, like rectangles around them. And then this gorgeous, like, I think it was the disciples, like up front. And the colors of all the stained glass windows with light coming through at different times and how you could see, dust floating in the air on the beams of light through like different colors and stuff, was really, really important to me. My mother is from Maine and my father's from Pennsylvania. And so we used to drive every year. We had a camp that my mom helped design with my grandfathers I think it was like near Castine. And it was this old farmhouse that they like dragged down the hill. And then my grandfather's Pap and Bubba, that's what he called it, built this little house next to it with a deck that connected. And it was vandalized as like a camp, like, well, they call them camps, but it's like a cottage.
Got it.
But in Maine, they call them camps for some reason. And there was a little stream behind the house. And we used to go there. I used to carry around a little red plastic shovel. And I think I had a Dorothy Hamill haircut for a really long time because I love Dorothy Hamill, the ice skater. And my basset hound and I would go to the stream, and I'd spend hours there folding over rocks and putting my hand into the water stream and the ice coldness of it, even in summertime, rushing past, and how I could watch the water move around my finger or build tiny dams or tiny little sculptures next to it, not cairns, not trying to change the landscape in any way, not having just a real intuitive way of being present.
Yeah.
And I think that space in my head, that's the place I go to that feels the most like me and makes me the most happy. I'm going to cry. So.
You can.
Thanks.
If you want.
But tied in with that, I think, is color and clay. And that, digging into the sandy, like rocks and stuff too, and holding that firmness of ground, but also having it dissolve in the water. Like that whole is just a little magical. Like those pieces are just really magical. And I colored all the time. I don't think I was a very happy child in general. And my mother used to give me blank pieces of paper. She was also a sculptor. And she used to give me blank pieces of paper to draw on. And I rallied against it all the time. It wasn't structured enough for me.
Yeah.
And so I asked for and begged for coloring books all the time. And I went through coloring book after coloring book after coloring book, creating different colors and shapes and stuff. And then got into ceramics. So that was like it's like all about color and experience, I guess. And self-soothing, I think, is partly where, like, awe, self-soothing, like, I think those were the experiences that I needed formatively. And that gave me joy.
Yeah. Because you were seeking joy. And maybe that awe was self-soothing, that you could find.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Space in that way. It's interesting that you talked about color so much, because I was thinking that might lead us into my next question about color. I put color and shape as my next line of questioning.
Yeah.
And I like this phrase that you said, color and clay.
Oh, yeah.
And you also were mentioning shape, that word shape too. And it's interesting how you talked about, did you say you became a sculptor first? Or really like a colorer?
Yeah, I think I considered myself a colorist, but I I was definitely in the clay department. I did some jewelry. I mean, I did a lot of different things because I have a lot of interests in material. But I definitely was in clay in high school. And then I got a scholarship to in ceramics in college. But I didn't like the wheel because I'm not symmetrical. I can't, sure. I mean, I can do it, but it's not my forte. Yeah. It's not what I'm interested in. I liked hand building. And then the hand building that I was doing didn't really fit into what they thought I should be doing, I think, in some ways. And so, and again, I think I wanted to be accepted and I didn't feel right. And I was more interested in the surfaces of the clay and the color that was being produced. And so I translated all of that into painting.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense looking at your paintings too. And by colorer, I meant like coloring book colorer.
Oh, yeah.
And then I thought that you were saying when you were young, you were getting into sculpture too, like with your mom's supplies maybe. But
yeah,
that translation, I can definitely witness just as somebody who views your painting because it is very textured and I could call it 3-dimensional.
Interesting.
The tools that you use
are,
some of them are more sculptor tools or just, creation tools for other things that aren't traditionally painting tools.
Right. Like carpet ripper-uppers or something.
Yeah. What is I came into your studio once and you had that rake. What is that used for traditionally? And you're like, this is one
probably
of my favorite
scraping.
ones.
Oh, yeah. That's, I don't know what it's traditionally. I think it's carpet. Carpet glue applicator.
Man, that's creative too. And
I love that thing. I just used it this weekend.
Oh my gosh. I loved that you brought that out and you're like, oh, this is just a tool that I get at the hardware store.
Yeah. I mean, the hardware store is the greatest, or, Restore or something like that. Like tools that friends' grandparents used, that you can just hold in your hand. Like there's a energy there too. But I paint on wood because
that's right.
Mostly if I paint it on canvas, I just rip through it.
You just have to become a sewer.
I've sewed
a textile artist.
Right.
Because it would be all sewing because you couldn't be rough with it.
Right. Which is, I have a couple sewed back together.
I still haven't asked my color question, but even before I do, I can't even get there yet because I have to I want to tie up some more of these ideas. And I think something that I just did was I jumped right over so many creative exercises that you were just talking about because I was so excited to talk about sculpture and painting and these very literal creative acts. But you were also talking about the act of being present and the act of sitting and watching dust float in the air through stained glass colors.
Yeah.
Or I guess stained glass sunlight. You talked about the touch of ice cold water and just turning over stones, not even making something, but the creative act of just interacting with your environment.
Yeah, the senses, the sensory aspect of that.
Yeah, and those are really creative too. Those acts. And
absolutely.
They're not even, they're creative and they're generative, but they're not, you don't even have to make something. You don't even have to produce, which is another question I have for you later, which is sort of about production and capitalism. But
sure.
So we have to make sure to get there because I'm very curious about that.
Sure. Experience is really important and connection is really important, right? Like that.
Yeah.
Intimate being with or witnessing, whatever it is. I frankly don't understand how people get bored because I swear you can sit anywhere and find something interesting in your area. Like the carpet weave. What in the world is going on with that?
Oh, yeah. And if you touch it for long enough, your hands will get all tingly. And
bizarre.
It is.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. And even when you talked about the dolls, you can apply that to everything around you, to the carpet, to paintings, to non-artistic things. You can imbue them with meaning. I know we've talked about Bacolard and the Poetics of Space and how
Great book.
Yeah. And it's something I love about that book is that there's this philosophy about how people imbue meaning and value into objects.
Yeah.
And you can totally take an artistic perspective for like fine art, but a child can do that too. A child must do that. A child just is compelled to do that, and
I would expand it. I would say
Please.
people must do that.
Yeah.
Imagination and creativity is at the heart of all of us.
Yeah.
And we all make creative decisions as far away as they think you are from like quote unquote creativity or creative acts, whatever, however that's been housed is like almost dangerous for us as humans because it disallows, I think it disallows a lot of people who want to do things right.
Yeah.
To not act in ways that will stimulate them to create. Yeah.
And then it can be impossible to find that thing that you're looking for.
Totally.
Which can just be found in touching a rock in a stream.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As a creative act.
I have no idea who they were. I just know that they had like symbols underneath them that I used to look at, like keys, like those things, and like the colors. That's all I can see.
Welcome back to In the Act, a podcast of Mead Community Radio. I was going to say public.
I know.
I'm Heather Hanlon, and I have the honor of interviewing Erica Huntzinger today, with John Tully producing, and we appreciate you listening. Erica, I hope I can ask you some more questions.
Oh my gosh, yeah, this is great.
Thank you. Man, I have 3 pages of questions, and
so
we
cute.
Got through the first question, which I value. It's the opposite of something that you should apologize for, because I think you are speaking, like, in just being able to speak about your childhood in that way, you're speaking to the whole point of your podcast, which is that every single person is constantly in the act.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. And
sorry,
we're always like becoming, like we were talking about when I came in, we're always becoming these next iterations of who we are.
Yeah.
And
oh my God.
Yeah. And it's like hard and lonely, and
yes,
we're looking for that connection, and some people end up looking for that connection with colors, and that's like how they find they can do that. Some people do it through, organizing rallies, and some people do it through teaching, and it's just a lot of us walking around looking for something that we can feel whole with. Yeah.
Can I pop in really quick? So when you said the next iteration of yourself, I was like really intentional about going into the studio this past weekend, and I was like, I'm going to go on both days and spend the time in there and paint. And I'm starting a new series, and excuse me. And I went in and I started painting, and I was like, man, gosh, I hate them so much. I don't know what I'm doing. How do I do these paintings? Gosh. I thought I knew how to paint. I don't know how to paint. And every single time I go into a new group of painting, I am a different person. And because I paint intuitively, I don't plan anything out. I don't have a sketch of how I'm going to do it or put things together. There is a weird exploration of the new self that I am that I don't know yet, that I have to pull out and paint with. And most of it is just real ugly. And that you have to get all this like stuff out to be able to have some sort of resolution. And frankly, every single time I do it, I'm like, it's not going to happen. There's no resolution. I have zero hope on these for these pieces. I've been painting for over 20 years. And that realization is just like really hit me hard this weekend. And it's because it's like I'm a new person from 3 months ago.
And you said that you painted intuitively. And so it's like if you're constantly redefining that person inside and even passively,
right?
You come to the wooden canvas thinking, what is intuitive inside of me?
Yeah.
And it's probably really hard to identify.
I mean, I can't. I can't identify before I paint.
Your painting identifies it for you.
That's correct.
That's probably, that's super interesting.
And a lot of people, because it's that process, don't believe there's validity in it.
To
because
intuitive
of that.
Art,
right.
Intuitive painting.
Intuitive, expressive, because you didn't plan it, it doesn't have the same validity. Then it's same with abstraction. Abstraction doesn't have the same validity as identifiable or objective art, right? I just donated a piece of work and the for something, and the definition on it was something like an Erica's childlike paintings. That is the face that I got to, and it was something
my
about
jaw
like
dropped.
yeah, it was something about childlike, and it was so diminishing. I feel
Absolutely.
like it doesn't mean. I've had a couple friends say to me like, "Oh, but you love child artwork." Child artwork is one of my favorite things ever. I love it. I love it. I love children's work.
You went into art therapy.
Right. And I was a preschool teacher for like 17 years. However, my work does not come from a place of childlike behavior.
No.
My work is of a history of composition, color, and exploration of the adult self that I am.
Yeah, it'd be impossible for you to do something childlike.
Correct.
Because you're an intuitive painter and you're an adult.
Right. So it was really disappointing, I gotta say. It hurt me a little bit.
Absolutely.
It's fine. But I feel like that's like what I've had to like push back against my whole art career.
Yeah, I think you and a lot of people who use abstraction or intuitive art, which is something that I'm learning a lot more about through you and what that means. Man, there's this artist, Kahari Turner, who is from Wisconsin, actually, and he used to think that photorealistic painting was the highest order of a painter.
Sure.
And
I think a lot of people do.
Yeah. And he, went to school for painting and somehow came across painting more abstractly. And he uses sometimes outlines of people, sometimes not. And but all of his people are missing like parts.
Yeah.
And he said that once he started to do that, and he uses water from different waterways to help him paint, and he lets the water guide some of it too. And once he got this abstraction,
wow,
he said that's when he found out that he could understand himself through painting, because he didn't know who his father was.
Yeah.
And all this time he was doing this very realistic painting. It wasn't something that he fully understood because he couldn't, there was no space in it.
Right.
And so then when he loosened those parameters, he got to a space that felt very true.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
I
me
love
too.
that.
And I think that that's a beauty across arts. I mean, if you look at dance or poetry or touching rocks, man, we're going to hit this 17 minutes again, and it's going to, and I mean, any of these generative or creative acts can be very, it's hard to explain, I guess. It's hard to explain.
It is. I agree. And I'm going to pop in. I think that for me, part of the joy of creating abstractly is that once I'm done with the piece, it which felt very of me, no longer feels of me in the same way. And I get to appreciate it from an objective viewpoint. But And we don't have to get into this a lot, but I don't really like painting very much. I don't really like it. However, the other part of the product when it's finished is that other people get to imbue meaning into it for them.
Right.
And what it means for them. And the joy or interest or grievousness or whatever that other people imbue into my work, I find really fascinating.
Yeah.
And I love that they take on a different meaning for different people.
Yeah. Yes.
As opposed to this is what it means, which is what most people get if you're an abstract. What does it mean? It's like, I don't know. What does it mean to you?
Yes. Yes.
And that's really all of our life is. What does it mean to you?
Yeah. Exactly. How are you going to imbue this with meaning? And you can, yes. How are you imbuing this doll with meaning? How are you understanding the dust floating? Because we are trying to understand ourselves as humans, and we need something to bounce that off of. We can't be in this like isolated chamber.
Absolutely.
Sure. Yeah.
And if my pieces are like a meditative space for you to kind of get lost in and do some reflection about yourself, for yourself, and develop meanings, like that's the greatest thing.
So I'm going to both contradict and extend this
great
specific conversation that we're having about abstraction, because I want to dive a little bit more into your color.
Yep.
And I'm going to wrap two questions up into one.
Sure.
When I was in your studio a few weeks ago, you showed me these pieces. Well, no, I was looking at these pieces that were not for sale. And you saw me looking at them and you're like, oh, I need those pieces because they help me remember how I did some things with color, especially, I think. And so that's like a first part of my question, which is, what are those things that you find yourself doing that you don't want to forget, with color specifically? And then a second branch of that is sometimes I see these black tangles in your paintings, and this is me contradicting our conversation. And sometimes when I listen to the interview that you did with your dad growing up in this coal town, this coal town, and sometimes I wonder if you feel those tangles coming from a certain place, or if me asking that is contradicting intuitive art.
No.
If anything, that
I think they're all set from some places. I think. Yeah. Did you say repeat?
If there's any motif that you find yourself repeating that you feel might come from somewhere. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if I can identify. I think that I have some heavy sadness and grief and darkness inside for sure. I think I carry a lot of anger around with me as well. And I think that scraping through or pulling off or editing out is a physical representation of trying to eliminate the grime inside in some ways. I do. There's usually a tangle, if you will, a black tangle that feels inaccessible to release from. And I think that's set in depression. I think that's set in anxiety. I know where those pieces come from. And I've worked really hard to explore them and try and work through them through therapy, through art, through friendship, through love, through connection. But yeah, those darknesses are always there.
Yeah.
And it's not always like a black, dark tangle though, because I find so much beauty in darkness. And the unknown as well. And sometimes I think, I did these 2 big black paintings, and I posted about them on social media, and someone wrote, "I've been there too. I know what you,"
Sure.
and I was like, well, that's an assumption. That's an assumption because you know what? Those were about driving at night. Like those were about like
Awesome.
me driving from Wisconsin or from Chicago to Wisconsin to see my love and looking forward to it, right? And seeing all the wet pavement and the stars and the lights of the cars like, flying by.
Seeing
and
the dark sky reflect on the wet of the dark road.
I mean, how gorgeous
and you're
is
excited
that?
to go where you're going.
Yes. So, but definitely I think like the scraping and the removing and the rubbing off is somehow trying to polish or, soften harder edges, I think, or get at something that I can't really get at.
Yeah.
Like I went to a breathing workshop and usually like in this yoga place and I usually try to like, it doesn't take me long to get into a meditative state. But I worked the whole time just on breathing. I was just like, and I just felt like I was working.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Instead of like falling into a place. And it was so hard. But I know I got something out of it, but sometimes it's just a lot harder than other
just labor.
times.
Like painting.
Yes.
It's a labor sometimes.
Yes. Oh, all the time.
It's a slog.
It's a slog.
What a beautiful word.
I love it.
That is like such an ugly word to really match that feeling probably that
Totally.
you're that makes so much sense.
Yes.
Sure. And it also makes sense that when you release those paintings, you can see them and say, oh, this is something that you can then re-imbue meaning into, which is not a word, but you can like,
oh my gosh, thank
revisit
you.
and like,
I never thought of it
because
like
it's like
that.
you expelled it.
Yes.
And now you can revisit it.
Absolutely. In a new
way.
me.
Yeah.
A
new iteration.
New iteration. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Heather. That's so beautiful.
I mean, it's you, and it's interesting to think about dark tangles in the colors of your pieces because I feel like your pieces have so much variety and balance, and they can be hard to define because you have things like tangles and scrapes, but these also very vibrant colors and sometimes bright colors. I know seasonal colors at times.
I actually know I'm more depressed when I use all the colors on a piece.
Interesting.
It's a very interesting, if there's a rainbow effect, it's usually I'm a little, and I have no control over my palette. I have no idea. If I want to make a red painting, good luck.
I feel like
it's just going to be all white. I have no idea.
That's such a wild declaration for an artist. It's like, I have no control over my palette.
No.
That's awesome. Because I think a lot of people would be afraid to say that out loud. Or a lot of artists maybe. But I think that that's so radical and positive.
Thanks.
Yeah.
It feels a little out of control.
Yeah.
I don't know if I answered your other questions.
I think you did.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of where I want to go next because it's like, life and art. There are just so many different places to take it. And I'm not a very experienced interviewee.
You're doing great.
Or interviewer.
You're doing great.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to recap a little and then see where it takes me.
Okay.
So color and shape. We find this intuitively. And okay, sure. So you're scraping grime. You're finding color. You're finding connection. You are releasing. Okay. So I think the direction I want to take it is talking about work-life-art collaboration. Because I feel like we've touched on your process a lot and your colors and atmospheres that you're creating.
Yeah.
So you've had some collaborations in the past, and I wonder if you want to touch on how that affects your process or your intuitive nature of interacting with your art when you are working with somebody else, and if you have any dream collaborations.
Did you say dream?
Yeah. Not like you go to sleep and you dream, but like, I really desire.
I'm like, I have actually.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well,
so funny.
Now we're pivoting the whole podcast to be about that. No.
Well, no, I had just in high school when I was taking this jewelry class, I dreamt this particular symbol and then I made it out of metal. So I have that. It's a pin I made for my mom.
Does she still have it?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I'll have to show it to you. Anyway, I don't know if I've. So I have a couple things to say about collaborations. Mm-hmm. I think it's real important that if you're going to do a collaboration with somebody that you let them know.
Oh, interesting.
Like that there's a true collaboration is actually an ask and receiving relationship, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Because
that seems more like a true collaboration.
Yeah.
So my first collaboration that I did was with an amazing painter, really lovely human being named Ted Stanuga. He's out of Chicago, amazing painter. And he was going through a rough time. I don't think he'd mind me saying this. And
because it was a true collaboration.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
So he wouldn't mind you saying this for sure.
And I asked if I could take the work that he hadn't finished, his drawings that he had, these charcoal drawings. I hate charcoal because it gets all over you and it's sensory stuff for me. But and maybe that's psychological too, right? Like, sure, right? You can expand it out.
I'm not a
you got
psychologist like you are, but interesting.
Well, I'm not, but we can take it there. So, but I worked on, I don't know, I think we did like 20 pieces, and I think I gave him 10 and he gave me 10. And so we worked on each other's pieces, and it felt very strange to have somebody do stuff on top of your work, and then also strange to do stuff on top of somebody else's work. And so that was my first, like, this is some boundary stuff that you really have to be secure in. And it felt a little intimate in a way that was, because I didn't know him very well, but we were friends. But it felt like I was caretaking for him in a way.
Interesting.
And I think he felt that way too. And it, created a great friendship.
So when you say...
So we did a show about it and we put it up. And we put it on, like, we tacked him up on wood and we worked on that together. And that felt like a very secure and solid way to do it. He still has them to this day. But that was my first, I think, true artist collaboration.
When you say that it felt strange, these were unfinished pieces.
Yeah.
From both of you, and you each exchanged 10. And you were talking about these boundaries. Was it that you lost a total sense of self in the painting that was strange? Or was it just that was it the fact that you were having to trust?
Multiplicity.
Okay. It just...
Right? It's not binary.
Yeah.
It's not
it's not an either or.
Yeah. It's everything. It's like, I don't know. That was a lot different than I thought it was going to be. Yeah, I was glad when we got him on the board because it felt a little, I don't know, it was strange.
Yeah.
It was fine.
And
it felt strange.
When they went up, did you feel differently, or did you also just feel like a distance?
I felt a lot better when they were up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There was distance. They were on wood then, like we tacked the paper up on wood. That act alone created another separation, and because we worked on them together, it created another boundary, I think, and solidified the piece. Right? So it gave it a structure.
Yeah.
And that was helpful.
Yeah.
Giving structure to something is helpful. I want to get to my second collaboration.
Please.
Because I love this one so much. So I have trouble editing Like everything. Organizing, I read tons of books on organizing and everything. So it's a really hard thing for me to keep straight. I'm pretty sure I have ADHD or something because I need to have things in open containers and clear containers. If they're enclosed things, they disappear.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, I have all the symptoms. It's just not diagnosed, whatever. Anyway, so I was really proud of myself. I had all of these like watercolors, like 30. I was like, I am going to throw these away because I can't resolve them. Haha. This is great.
Goodbye.
Good for you. Goodbye. And I was like walking to the garbage, and my partner, Cooper, intercepted me. Was like, hey, what are you doing with those? And I was like, nothing. Throwing them away. He's
I'll
like,
see them in hell.
All right. And he's like, well, why don't you just give them to me? They can't get any worse if you're throwing them away. Like, let me try and work with them. Because he's a visual artist as well. And I was like super sassy about it. I was like, okay, yeah, sure. You can try and make them better. There's no way. Like, I was just like, sure, whatever.
It's like the touch of God can't fix this.
Right.
So good luck.
Good luck. Good riddance. Whatever.
I'm trying to edit Cooper.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole thing. And I think it was like 2 weeks later, he's like, do you want to see what I've been working on? Do you want to see them? And I was like, sure. Okay. And they were beautiful. They were so beautiful. And I can't even express to you like how profound it is to have something that you hated or didn't like or couldn't resolve, and that your partner takes from you and is like, I'm going to care for it and like transform it and makes it beautiful. Like that was like, I don't even know. Like there's some of my favorite pieces of work, and I love collaborating with Cooper. It's really beautiful. It makes me tear up because it's just such a cool thing.
It's like going back and touching the ice cold water and being surprised. And you're like, I'm part of this.
Yes.
But it's also not me, but it's partly me.
Yeah.
I'm touching it, and that's how I'm feeling it. And
right.
I'm turning over the rock.
Yeah.
Yeah, a good partner can really, what is the words that they use? Can take something that you hate and just take care of it.
Yeah.
Not take care of it like all done, but like caretake. Or like with your pieces you're going to throw in the garbage.
Yeah.
It's like, this is In the Act of Mead Community Radio, and I'm Heather Hanlon here with the interviewee and creator of the podcast, Erica Huntzinger.
Hello.
And John Tully, and you, listener. Thank you for being here. I'm going to take just a hard turn here because I'm dying to ask you a question about podcasting.
Yeah.
Which is something that you also have been using as a creative space, and also something that you've been literally producing.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about, tie that into a conversation about capitalism.
Sure.
I think that it comes up a lot in your podcast organically. Oh. Yeah. And I was wondering if you'd be surprised by that.
Yeah.
I think it makes sense because when you're talking about creating, you're creating something, oftentimes artists create something physical. Mm-hmm. And then we live in this society where, you know, in order to survive, we need to produce something that can have monetary value so that we can survive. And throughout this series of In the Act, people have been grappling with like what that looks like in a positive way, what that looks like in a negative way.
Yes.
And what are the questions that I want to ask you about that? Maybe what do you find interesting about creativity in relation to capitalism? Or what term would you use to describe the final product of art making? Would you use product, commodity, masterpiece, artwork, asset?
I guess product.
Product.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not making something so that people are going to buy it. Mm-hmm. I'm making something and then I hope somebody's going to buy it.
Yeah.
But that's not the impetus. And I am very, very careful and have been very careful in my artistic endeavors that I don't make money from my art to live. Because if I did, it would be tuned to what the customer wants.
Yeah.
And then I would be making things for other people, and it gets outside of myself, and I wouldn't be doing myself justice. It's fine if other people want to do it differently, but that is not, and that's their choice and how they need to do things. For me, it gets me off track. Commissions are really hard for me for those very reasons, because I'm making it for someone else, and it's just a little outside of center. And once I just get outside of center, they aren't as true to myself. And I would much prefer making a bunch of work and somebody comes and chooses one.
For sure.
So, that's my bit for myself. I think perfectionism and capitalism kind of go hand in hand.
Interesting.
I think that the tune to follow, to make, to be, to have are things that we all grapple with in different ways. And I find it so effing sad that we as a society in America, for me, have to pay out of pocket for our own health. That the extreme wealth for the managers and CEOs of companies, et cetera, banks, whatever, and their and the lowest paid person, the stratosphere between that has grown exponentially since the 70s. I think it is a disservice to us as humans. I think the distrust for media and for truth is absolutely goes to the basis of my work. It's to the basis of myself. I try and take people at their word. If you tell me something, even if I'm like, I'm not sure I believe that, I'm going to believe you because I would rather believe you and go about that way than have to think that there's another meaning behind it. I try to be honest and genuine with things with myself. I don't want to keep secrets. I will keep your confidence, but I'm not going to keep your secrets. I don't have secrets. I don't do secrets like that. I don't like them. I think it's gross. So but if you have a confidence, I will keep your confidence. And that I find very different.
Yeah.
I think all of that kind of goes into capitalism, right?
That's so fascinating. And can you help me define how can you define for yourself what that secret versus
it's people first. It's people first. Right? It's people first. I grew up like my father's a minister. My mother's a psychologist. When I was painting initially after painting school, I was like, I couldn't get the brush to the canvas. I was like, I'm not doing anything for anybody. I'm just painting for myself. I'm so narcissistic. I'm so full of myself. I can only paint. Right? All that you crap just hear in your head.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I was like,
black tangles.
Yes, exactly.
Everywhere, constantly.
And how do I give more of myself? Like, oh my gosh. I mean, crazy. But I think how do you give more of yourself and still be true to yourself?
And that's how
can you be
capitalism
connected? Yes.
Thrives.
Yes, but it's people-centered, person-centered, person-centered. If you want to get back to the old self of what was meaningful and valuable in this country is that at some point there was people first, right? But not all people, just a certain kind of people.
Absolutely.
How do we get to a place then of all people first? We as people first. We, us, not them. not them, not other. And that was the point of the podcast, because during this time,
you tied it all together. Wow.
During this time of the pandemic, John and I talked. I talked with my friends. I had a very small pod of people that are very meaningful to me. Jen, Tom, Sarah, Cooper, and I did art group. And working at the library, I love the people at the library so much. They're so great. This is the last bastion of democracy and freedom of speech and like educated, beautiful souls that work here. It's just amazing. And I wanted there to be connection for people who are feeling so lonely and isolated, because we all were in our own ways. The devastation that happened from it, what rose out of it that were gifts and jewels. What did we have to dig for? What did we have to lie in? Talk about a grueling time to reevaluate and to find creative connections for ourselves. And it was through that was like, let's do this podcast about creativity, about people's lives, so that when people are at home and listening and can connect to the computer, that they can stream it and find it anytime they want. They can learn about the other. And they'll hear about their lives and either get inspired, or when they see them out, they can say, hey, I heard you.
Yes. I saw one of your interviewees this weekend, and I tried so hard. We were in the same event together, and I tried so hard to find her, but I kept getting really close and then not knowing what to say.
Yeah.
And that's the only reason why I really know anything about her, is because you like interviewed her, and it felt really like a gift and a jewel to get to know people in that way.
Yes.
Because in the pandemic, we couldn't, we lost the ability to make new friends.
Right.
Because we had to quarantine. Right. That is something.
Everybody's a gift. Everyone. Every single one. It's not that we're all different, but we all have our journeys and we all have our stories, and everyone is a gift. I'm not just interviewing people who are successes, right? Like, this isn't about like, show me what your success is. It's like, what happened to transform? What did you go through? What happened with you in your life that you can make these connections? Because maybe it'll stimulate that for somebody else. Show me where it hurts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Or show me where it didn't. And what happened? Like, what was the pivotal moment? Because it's those connection pieces. It's not like, I don't care. I mean, I do care. I don't care exactly where you got to, but like how you got there.
You want to know about the process.
What does that process look like? Because that's where it's hardest.
Yeah.
That's where you hate
that's where
it.
You're in the trenches.
That's when you're in the trenches.
That's where you have all those tangles, like you were just saying,
That's
like you were about to put that paintbrush on the canvas, and you're like, I'm a narcissist, and I'm and like somewhere you're like, no, I'm not. But then it's like you were saying, like capitalism needs more and more and more.
Yeah.
And the truth is, if you're trying to tell your truth, there's only so much. It's just you.
Yeah.
And can that be enough? That's like a question that that a person might have to ask in like the society that we're in. And in the pandemic, we really had to sit in that. What is enough?
Yeah.
What are we looking for here?
Right.
I mean, like, what is the point here? And we had that second to just think about that. And your podcast does capture that in a really interesting way, because as the pandemic progresses, we grow a language around it, grow a way of talking about it. Yeah. And then we find ourselves in like new spaces.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to hear people talk about that in the podcast that you created in that time.
Yeah. It's all growth. It's all about growth. It's all that process of growth. That's why spring's my favorite season.
I'm so jealous that spring is your favorite season. Because I hate it.
It's got everything all in one. It's snowy.
Yeah, you're right.
My favorite snow is April snow.
Oh, wow.
It's fall.
Wow.
It's spring with thunderstorms and crazy lightning and wind. And it's summer because it's 80. What's going on?
Yes.
I love it.
Oh my gosh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Why you would love it.
Yeah.
It's like nature at its most intuitive. It's like, this earth is my canvas, and I'm just like using the scraper sometimes if I want to.
That's right.
I'm just
That's right.
putting this color on because I need to feel better. I'm like putting this tangle on because it's got to get out of there.
Totally.
You know? That makes so much sense.
Oh my gosh, that's great. I love it.
Wow.
Totally. Thank you.
Thank you. You've been talking about your podcast as almost like this place where people can find a home, or like a true home, when a home might be the only place where you can go. And you've talked about Sheboygan as a vortex before.
Yeah.
And how you can leave, but you'll come back. And I'm also interested in that. And
how many people do you know that left Sheboygan and come back?
Oh my gosh, I know. So
how many people that you're like, oh, what is this place? Wait, what's here? It's like,
who knew?
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. It's beautiful and wonderful.
What keeps you coming back? What keeps you wanting to make this your home?
I mean, I can afford to have a studio here. I love the community here. I love the accessibility to amazing museums and creative people. And I feel like I'm making a difference with my life here. I love Chicago so much. I feel like my home is in Chicago and my heart in a lot of ways. But I love the anonymity of Chicago. I love all the different restaurants and foods you can get to, and all the different creative people, and the diversity of everything. I love the melting pot, and that's what I'm always looking for.
Do you find that?
Pot.
Do you?
I mean, it's a little white and Christian here, honestly. I mean, which is its own thing. I'm cis white woman. And that affords me a lot of privilege and a lot of acceptance in communities that I may not have otherwise be. I think there's a lot of racial issues in this town.
Yeah.
In this area, in the country, and maybe, everywhere. And so my continued, battle is to battle myself and to try and find avenues of bridging openness, connection of all people. Growth. Yeah.
And you've tied that in so much today. You said all people a lot when you're talking about art and when you're talking about your podcast.
Yeah.
And that is a bridge that I definitely see in the community. I mean, like I said, it's a way that I was able to talk to people that I don't even know through In the Act and learn about them. And
I love that.
Yeah. So
that's generative.
It is. Oh, absolutely.
That's what we want. Take it outside. What did you learn from what you did?
Yes.
And then take it. How did you grow? What relationship? It all comes back to relationships.
Show me where it hurts. Show me where it doesn't hurt. And take my hand.
Take my hand.
We can grow together.
Totally.
Thank you for taking my hand today and letting me do this. Thank you for your generosity of spirit toward us all, and for your generosity of sharing here. It's not easy to share. So, and to take the time to do it. So thank you. Where can people find you?
Erica Huntzinger, Instagram, Erica Huntzinger, ericahuntsinger.com.
And where
you can probably Google me.
Absolutely. Where can people find your artwork? Honey and Ace.
Oh, Honey and Ace.
They can Whisk Bakery. They can Ebb and Flow.
Ebb Flow.
They can Instagram message you and see your studio.
Yep.
And browse there.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
I really
Erica.
appreciate it. It's been lovely being with you and talking with you.
It's been really lovely. Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
Me too.
Huge thanks to Mead Public Library, the fantastic Melissa Prentice, Josh Littner, Annalisa Finca, the radio committee, our amazing engineer John Tully, and for the title, Photo and Fabulous, theme music composed and performed by Cooper Deers.
In the Act is produced in the studios at Mead Public Library in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. More information on the web at meadpl.org.